The area that we're talking about is a saddle between two higher features. A saddle, maybe 40 feet wide, or yards wide, or something like that. And the Japanese were ensconced on that between Brigade headquarters and 3 battalions. They decided, the Brigadier and our commanding officer decided to attack with 2 battalions going down the track, C Company on the left and a company from the 2nd 14th on the right. And we were just going to move through. We line up, nobody was taking cover or anything like that because it was in a parkland cleared area. You had the higher trees, very low undergrowth, no problems at all. People were just, and no opposition from the Japanese or anything, but there was a line of rainforest on this saddle. They line up in extended line, officers and NCOs. We moved forward, it'd be like a bayonet attack. Anything like ever happened on Gallipoli. We knew the Japanese were there and it was going to be a bayonet attack. We got about halfway, it was only about 100 yards, say, to the line of rainforest. We got about halfway there and the Japanese started firing at us. Our people all, even though they couldn't see the, they were pointing, returning the fire as they walked. By the time we got to the edge, 25 had been killed and numerous others wounded. We hit the rainforest, it was absolute shambles. The Japanese were in the trees, they were in foxholes. Everybody's still moving in, I mean, you could keep your line in simply because everybody was firing from the hip, virtually. Or, if they could see anyone, as they moved through. And they didn't get too far because, so many casualties, and was the Japanese retreated, but then blew a bugle further back and then reassembled. In the meantime, about 6 from C Company, because of all, it was a whole shambles, managed to get through to the other side. And I was the only officer, I was among them. And about 8 from the other side, from the 2nd 14th, got through. It was about 400 yards. When we got there, we had another fairly open area, huge trees, small undergrowth. It had been in probably a vegetable garden or something for Papuans in the distant past. When we got there, Brigadier Potts came walking down the track. He put the, say, 6 or 8 people that had got through from the 2nd 16th and the 6 or 8 that got through from the 14th under my command. I was the only officer. On one side of the track, he had 2 platoons defending Brigade headquarters from Don Company. Lefty language, he was a captain, but he was in charge of 1 platoon. Blue Lambert was in charge of another. They were to attack on one side of the track where it was wider. I was on the other side. We did exactly the same as we did at the other side. We formed, instead of an extensive line, an extended line, it was more or less a platoon, a probing sort of formation. They did on the other side of the track. And in our case, it was more of an extended line because we didn't have as many. We only went 30 yards and we had the same result. People wounded and killed, the whole lot. Everybody had to go down flat, unfortunately, in low undergrowth. I got 5 of them. And we moved around to the left, thinking now, it'd be a line of Japanese, in the rainforest at the edge of this cleared area. And if we might get behind them. So we went around 5, crawled around in the low undergrowth until we got. Then there was a 70-degree slope. We didn't have far to go, about as high as a house. We crawled up to the top. When we got just about the crest, 5 bullets burst of 5 went down through the tree alongside. It was only about 6 inches. But you could see where they'd come from because they splintered as they came out. There was the Japanese, say, 12 feet above, but the foliage was very thick. I couldn't see him and he couldn't see me. He had heard the movement or saw it or something, and he had a shot. Now, the other 3 or 4 were a couple of yards to my left. There was a slight log, we're right at the lip of the hill, a log across, only about a foot deep. And there was a chap joined me right alongside. Before I could stop him, I would have stopped him. He slithered over the log. And he got a burst from a machine gun 2 yards away. There was a Japanese, obviously in a foxhole, and he got the burst of the machine gun, so he slithered back dead. A minute later, another one was killed there. We slithered backwards down this 8-foot slope. They started rolling their grenades down. We had steel helmets, and we were flat against the 70-degree slope, and flat on the ground because they were rolling these and they were exploding. But every time one went off, we could see around the ridges of the steel helmets the flash of the grenade. If they'd been our grenades, the Mills grenade, everybody would have been killed. Being Japanese and on a 70-degree slope, probably most of the effect of the grenade was going up in the air and the rest into the hill. We slither backwards. We go back to where we started from. At that stage, everybody had gone. There's no sign of anyone. Brigade headquarters had left to go down. Nobody was taking cover. We just wandered down, weren't intercepted by Japanese or anyone else. We get to Manara, which is at the foot of the hill where Brigade headquarters and everybody else. They had all the supplies in the world. We had a wonderful time. In the meantime, the 3 battalions of the 21st Brigade had to take a huge detour with their wounded, carry them down these incredible slopes and up that. They didn't get to Manara until about 2 o'clock the following day. By that time, the Japanese were already shelling it. But then we were taking a defensive position on the ridge above.